We're following several plea hearings in the sprawling Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. Some suspects appeared in court within the last couple of hours, and they have entered pleas for their alleged roles in the fraud. So Rob Olson is joining us now. Rob was in the courtroom today. Rob, you're at the courthouse right now. Just kind of talk us through your day since this morning and what has happened there at the courthouse.
Yeah, this is federal court in Minneapolis, where the other hearings and trials that I have covered for the Feeding Our Future related prosecutions have occurred. Today there were 3 appearances on a total of 7 people that were included on the same indictment, an indictment about 2 years ago. That put 7 people in a group, because the way that they prosecute a lot of the Feeding Our Future cases is they're doing them in groups of people. And, as you'll recall, I think, I'll have to do the math again today as part of this story, but it was, more than 70 people indicted in total. There were 2 different trials that I covered with prosecutions. They have lumped people together that are sort of connected. So there was a group of 7 indicted together. 3 appeared today, 4 will appear on Friday. Of the 3 today, 1 did not accept a plea agreement from the prosecution. It was offered, it had expired today when the hearing started, confirmed that they were not taking the plea deal. 2 others, though, a husband and wife, did take a plea deal, agreeing to plead guilty to a single count of wire fraud each. The 4 that are appearing on Friday, you would guess that they're getting sort of the same plea deal. The sentencing dates are not set yet at this point, but still would carry likely several years in federal prison plus restitution. The amounts we heard today were over $1 million each.
And Rob, I think that total number, we have 79 people. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right, yeah. Yeah. There have been a number that have been added to it. It's of the original indictments that came out several years ago, and then there have been others that have added along the way, but 79 sounds about right. So this is a group of 7 indicted together originally 2 years ago, that now 6 of the 7, at least 2 of them today did, and 4 more anticipated. At least it's scheduled that way in the court calendar, is change of plea hearings. So 6 of the 7 taking plea deals. The first one up today, the judge had even said, here, let me pull up my notes from the court room. This was Gandhi Yusuf Muhammad is his name. He had been offered, again, a plea deal to a single count of wire fraud in exchange to drop all the remaining counts. That plea deal expired at the beginning of the hearing. The judge asked him, saying, hey, the other 6 defendants that are indicted with you are all scheduled for either today or Friday to plead guilty. He confirmed to the judge he declined the deal, and she told him, all right, we'll see you in April. That trial set for April 7th, but now again set to be for 1 defendant instead of a group of 7.
And Rob, I know you've been covering this for a while. Is that something that was expected?
You mean that the plea deals would occur, or that the one would reject the plea deal?
That the one would reject the plea deal to then be in front of a jury.
That I don't know where that came from, because you've seen a number of these where, especially after the last convictions now, about a year ago, when Amy Bach, who's sort of the alleged ringleader, who founded Feeding Our Future, and a number of others were indicted. After that, a number of other people that had been indicted began changing their pleas and taking plea offers. So some of that was expected. It isn't a bit unusual that you have a group of 7 indicted together because of their connections. I mean, many of them are family members, that you would have one opting not to take a plea deal when the 6 others did. So got the indictment here, kind of rereading through to see what the various components here for the 7 people are, to see if there's anything that jumps out here for this one person to not take a plea deal when the other 6 do.
Yeah, and I know you got a lot to sift through there, but Rob, something else that I think kind of seems into to the headlines here is the staffing changes, right? It's something that we have been reporting on in relation to some of the federal prosecutors, the U.S. Attorney's Office. I know that was a big headline that we've been following over the last couple of weeks. Is we've seen kind of this what we were calling mass exodus of people who were leaving, and if they would be able to have, the proper people in place to stand for, trials like this and for, court cases like this. Is that, you think, have we changed in any way, or is there enough to get a fair use, for all the fair trials?
Well, I think, a couple of things have changed and a couple haven't. One are that, the two prosecutors that I saw in the court today are two that I had not seen before in connection with this case, because they're relatively recently added to this. The prosecutors that I had known from the other hearings and from the trials that included Harry Thompson have all resigned here in a couple of months ago in light of the issues they had with the immigration enforcement. So. So these are new prosecutors to the case, not necessarily new to the U.S. Attorney's Office here, though. And so much of this, again, this indictment in this case, it came out 2 years ago. There was a superseding indictment, and basically in court terms, that just means an amended indictment, some other things added to that came out last year, maybe last fall. But so much of the work had already been done with the indictments and the evidence gathering, et cetera. It's just a matter for these other attorneys that may not have been involved in the initial prosecutions of others to get up to speed with everything. But again, this is cases that have been going on, investigations for several years. So there's a lot of that there that they can familiarize themselves with and forge ahead.
Yeah, and you mentioned 6 of 7 taking plea deals today. What's on tap for the rest of the day while you're there at the courthouse?
Well, there's just the 3 that appeared today. Again, the first said declined a plea offer, and so there's an April 7th trial date. The next 2, husband and wife, by the way, both accepted a plea offer of a single count to wire fraud. The first person that declined the offer is the brother of the woman that took it then alongside her husband today. So the judge, in terms of feeding our future related prosecutions, that's done for today. But again, 4 more of these defendants on the calendar for Friday morning here, all listed on that calendar as change of plea hearing.
And I imagine you might be there, Rob Olson. You've been covering this for quite a while, my friend.
I'm guessing I will be, yes.
We appreciate it. Appreciate your work, too,
Sure.
Of course. If there's anyone I need to talk about at feeding our future, it is Rob Olson. I can tell you that.
It's I've done a lot of it, covered quite a bit of it. And again, there's so many defendants that I have now lost count, and that's the homework that I need to do is to make that spreadsheet or update the spreadsheet that I had of the people charged versus those who've taken plea deals or been found guilty.
Yeah, there's a lot to get through, but we appreciate it. Thanks, Rob.
You bet. See ya.